All right, here we go. SQL Index Manager. Real quick run through on this. This is a very short training session. Let's talk about it. The issue is index fragmentation. SQL Server indexes are maintained fairly well internally, but the problem that happens is that there's fragmentation that occurs. It's both physical fragmentation and logical fragmentation. And the problem is that the accidental DBA, the new DBA, the guys coming in off the street, developers who've been tasked with database administration, they don't understand how to diagnose index fragmentation. They may not even know that they need to diagnose index fragmentation. Understanding where fragmentation is occurring, how fragmentation occurs, and what to do about it is actually somewhat problematic, is somewhat of a difficult task, and people frequently miss it or mess it up. So we've brought out this new tool, SQL Index Manager, to help you diagnose what's going on with your indexes. Now, once you understand what's going on with your indexes, it's not always easy to understand what you're supposed to do about it. If you've got physical fragmentation, how much physical fragmentation before you should do a rebuild? How much logical fragmentation before you need to do a reorg? How much of both fragmentations is really good and how much is really bad? How big are the indexes before you fragment? All this other stuff you need to understand. Well, we've built a lot of that knowledge into the tool. Now, if you've been a DBA for a little while, you've probably tracked down Michelle Uford's scripts for index fragmentation because they're just second to none. They're glorious scripts. I love using them. They're fantastic. But they are kind of complicated. If you haven't been a DBA for long, if you're really fresh out of the gate, having those scripts, if you just run them as is, it's great. But if you need to do any adjustments, if you need to make modifications, if you just don't understand what's going on and you don't feel comfortable running it, you're going to run into issues. So that's why we have the SQL Index Manager. Now let me go ahead and launch this. It's my wife and kids. I work for Redgate Software, and we have SQL Index Manager. Okay. So what happens is you connect to a server. Now I'm just going to connect to my local one. Grant Red 1, GFR 1, never typed during demos. And I'm going to click on Diagnose Now. It immediately scans through the 960 indexes on the table and finds a few tables with some fragmentation. There's not much, mainly because I've been running index fragmentation over and over again on this set of tables. So there's probably not that much fragmentation here. But here's the information that you get. You get a list of databases, you get the tables, and you get the indexes. But that's not the good stuff. The good stuff's right here in the middle of the screen. You get the number of pages in the indexes and the level of fragmentation. And then we've supplied some knowledge and some logic in here to determine whether or not you need to do a rebuild or whether or not you need to do a reorg and the priority. And we've done that based on the size of the index in terms of pages, the level of fragmentation, and the type of fragmentation, whether it's logical or physical, and we've set a priority. So you can actually rely upon us to give you an adjustment for the indexes that you may want to rebuild or not. The beautiful thing is we've now got a little checklist over here, and you can say, okay, I don't want to rebuild. For example, I want my index in AdventureWorks to be fragmented because I count on AdventureWorks for demos. But let's say it's a production system. In a production system, I may not want to rebuild a particular index because it's really big and it's going to impact the system if I rebuild it now. Or I may know that this is a clustered index and therefore if I rebuild it, it's going to affect other indexes. There may be some other stuff, maybe, internal reasons why I want to turn these on or off. I may have tables or databases even that I don't want to defrag, so I can pick and choose which ones I run. But once I've decided on the list which ones I want to run, I just come down here and I hit I come down on this side and I hit Fix Indexes. Now I've got two ways I can do it. I can just let the tool do it for me and it tells me what it's going to do. It's going to rebuild 3, it's going to reorg 2. Or I can get into the SQL script directly. And I can copy this out to my clipboard, put it into Management Studio, and run it from there if I need to. No issues, no problems. It's a straight on T-SQL script. You can edit, not edit, save, do whatever you want to do with it. For this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the auto fix, and I'm going to hit fix now. And if you look over here, it ran through those indexes and it did whatever it said it was going to do, either an index or rebuild. And so you can see again, databases, tables, indexes, and the fix it did and whether or not it was successful. Everything's complete, it's all done. We can go back to index analysis, reanalyze, and we find that most of those indexes have been moved off the list. Now the one that I selected is still there, and then two others, fairly small indexes with pretty light fragmentation, are still on the list. What this means is that the reorg actually didn't do quite a sufficient job on this, and so it would need a rebuild to really completely defrag it. However, with the number of pages at 343, the level of fragmentation being only 21%, it's not that big a deal to leave it as is if you need to. Now you can also see all the other indexes and get some indication as to where our cutoffs are. For example, we've got here an index that's 97% fragmented, but it's only 34 pages. So as such, we're not suggesting you defrag this at all. What we've got is a cutoff at around 100 pages. So if it's 100 pages or less, we're not going to suggest you defrag, regardless of the level of fragmentation, because it's just not worth the trouble in most cases. In some cases it might be, but that's going to be up to you to figure out those edge cases on your own. But by and large, what we've got here is a nice tool, does what it needs to do, covers your bases, gets everything done, and that's really all there is to it. It's not complicated, it's pretty simple. Let me switch back over to here, and I'm going to stop sharing. If anybody has any questions or comments, we are done with the demo portion of our morning. I got a thumbs up from one. How's it going, Alan? Any questions? Or Jonathan? Oh, by the way, this is available for download now. It's a beta. But it is available for download now. And that's pretty much it.
I had you muted. The graph is kind of cool because that way it stands out a lot better than just a whole bunch of numbers. And um, for managers and stuff, you can give them a little printout and say, here's how bad the table was. Um, just colors and graphs are always cool. And some things we've inverted those to just when something's really bad, we'll flip the color scheme. So bad is green. And absolutely.